Hi, my name is Ibrahim, and in this video we are going to take a look at the requirements and the strategy required to design a road case. You will also get to understand with the help of examples how we at KEYWAY Solutions go about designing a road case once we have all the requirements. So over here you can see some general requirements that or you can also call them questions that we not only ask ourselves but we also ask the clients before we start designing the road case. In order to explain all of these points, obviously, first of all, you need to understand the type of product that you are going to be placing in the road case. Whether it's a medical product, whether it is related to a lighting industry, whether it's related to a music industry. So for this, let's have a look at an example. Here we have a moving head. It's an Aurora V6 LED profile, and this is used quite a lot on production setups. So we know from experience that this type of moving head has two axes of rotation, and both those axes of rotation can always be locked. This is very important because this helps us in understanding how the product will actually be stored in the case. Next, as we go through the technical specifications, we can look at the weight of the product, which is 31 kgs. This is almost more than 70 pounds. So definitely there will not be one person who will be lifting this light, but at least minimum of two people will be required to carry this light. We have to take this into consideration because the ergonomics of the road case, which was the next point, is also very important in deciding the design of a road case. If your case is not user friendly and you're not able to access or remove the product with ease, then the entire purpose of the road case is lost. If you look at the dimensions over here, one thing that strikes out to me is the height of the product itself, which is 753 millimeters. This means that if you have to design a road case that allows the access or entry of the product from the top, then the two people who will be carrying the light would have to lift this above their almost above their waist or above their shoulder to place it into the road case. So one thing that we can rule out is that a top entry approach would not be preferable in this instance. What we can, however, do is we can look for options where this product can be stored either from the front of the case or from the side of the case. Also, since from experience we are aware that these lights are mounted on a truss or on a light bar, we know that the main component that handles all the weight of the product is the base over here. So once the light is stored into the case has to be designed in such a way that it allows the light to be held by the base, but it should also have some sort of some area that can be put around the arms to hold the arms so that the light does not move or pivot around the base when the road case is in transport. Talking about transport, we come back to our original slide and we can see under transportation we have listed overall dimensions, transport mode, compatibility, space optimization, manual or forklift handling, and stackability. So it is not only important to design the case to house the product, but it is also very important to have the overall dimensions of the case such that it is truck friendly. By truck friendly, we mean that because this road case will be made multiple times, it should be able to utilize the storage space of a truck in a very efficient manner. So for this reason, we have some magic numbers that we always follow, such as the width or the length of the road case. If it lies between 600, 800 or 1200, that means this road case will be able to utilize the storage space of a truck very efficiently. At the same time, how will the road case be lifted out of the truck? Will it be carried by people or will it be carried by a forklift? And if it's the latter, then provisions need to be made so that the case can be lifted easily by a forklift. At the same time, in the road case industry, a lot of these cases are stacked on top of each other. So we have to make sure that this road case also should have caster dishes on top of it. Now, coming back to ergonomics, the ease of removal and placing of the light inside the case is very important. But as we realized early on, that the light weighs more than 70 pounds. So if you are taking the light out of the case or putting it in, you don't want the case to be moving around. So that means we would need casters underneath the case that would be braked. Similarly, we would also need storage space for accessories, because these lights, they come with brackets and they come with clamps that allow them to be mounted to a truss. And so if the client wants to store these accessories in a storage space somewhere in the road case, they should have that space available. Also, most of the time, to save the setup time, the client would prefer to put the light along with the brackets and the clamps already attached to the light without removing them. So this point, from experience, we also have to take into account while designing a road case, so that provisions are given in the design of the road case such that the lights can be placed with the brackets and the clamps already mounted on top of them. There are also some road cases that let's say audio mixers, or that have, let's say, speakers in them or amplifiers in them, where the top lid would just be removed and electrical connections would be made. And this is done where electrical connectors are placed on the outside of the case, and they provide, using those connectors, you can provide power to the equipment while the equipment stays in the road case. So coming back to our example of this light, so we have determined that this light will be stored in the road case either with a front entry or a side entry. We will have storage space for accessories. There won't be any connectivity options over here. And let's also assume that the client requires 2 of these lights to be placed inside the road case, since this will be most probably be used for touring purposes. So the road case should also have a label dish on top of this that will allow the people to easily recognize what product lies in which road case. Then we discussed the caster dishes that should be on top of the case. Casters should be braked. So yeah, this is how we jot down all the requirements, and after discussing with the client and based on our experience as well, and then we strategize the design of the road case, which will be discussed in the next slide, and how we go about producing an MVP, which is a minimum viable product that then we can show to the client, and they will then be able to approve that, after which the case will be taken off for manufacturing. Thank you. In the previous slide, we took a look at the design requirements and the strategy of designing a road case. And in this slide, we are going to continue by looking at what we call a preliminary or a MVP design, a minimal viable product. So a minimal viable product is the least amount of work that is required to visually communicate to the client the design intent. And so there are various strategies that we use to communicate that. What we can do is we can think of reference cases that have been made before. We can use sketches in CAD. We can record some videos showing how different reference cases and what features we will take from those cases to come up with a new design. And we can do this in various ways. We can either communicate with the client through emails. We can have a face-to-face meeting with them. We can also record a video and email it to them, because that allows a lot of information to be absorbed visually quite quickly. Once that is done, and once the client understands what the design intent for the road case is, you have to think of the CAD starting point. So if the case already exists, is something that we have made before, but let's suppose in the case of our moving head, let's say it's a different moving head, but we have made a similar case before for another moving head. So at that point, what we are looking at the same case but with a different moving head. That means we can take the same CAD that we had before, we can modify it a little bit with the least amount of effort to show to the client what their new road case will look like. Keep in mind, at this stage we are not putting in the details that are necessary to manufacture the case. We will only do it once the client approves the design of the case. So there are 3 different scenarios we can have. One is, like I mentioned earlier, you have the same case but you have a different light that you want to put in it. Then it could be a completely new design. Maybe there is a medical equipment that the client wants to carry and we have never made a case for that before. So that is one point that also needs to be considered. In that case, we would take the closest CAD available if there is, and try to modify it the least amount possible to give a visual idea to the client of what the design will look like, versus resellable. So the third scenario could be that there are a lot of cases such as cable packers that are repurposed. They can be resold, but they're also repurposed to fit different items. And so the idea behind that is that if those items are not being used, at least the case can be used for other purposes. Now, once this MVP design is sent to the client and the client signs off on the requirements, the CAD has to be done in a way that it can be progressed to the detailing and manufacturing stage once the sign off from the client has been received. And that is our next topic. Once the client approves the design of the case, the next step is to prepare and put all the details in the road case that would allow that case to be manufactured. Now, what does this involve? This involves putting in different features such as holes for rivets, holes for fasteners, different cutouts that would allow you to mount the hardware, and some also cutouts in materials such as foam to properly secure, in our case, the moving head that we were talking about. Because remember, the base of the moving head has to sit onto something, right? And it cannot be a hard surface, because when the road case is in transportation, there will be a lot of vibrations that we do not want to carry over to the product itself. The aim of the case has to be fulfilled, which is the protection of valuable equipment. Then there are also, for example, as you can see over here, there are braces, there are slot and tabs, just furniture stuff, that joinery methods that allow all these plywoods to come together and form a structure for the road case. Obviously, the tolerances and the fabrication drawings also have to be made so that the assembly people know what they are, the type of parts they are handling to assemble the case. Now, most of this process, most of the time, starting from the detailing of the assembly all the way to the manufacturing stage, can involve some steps that can be very tedious and can take a lot of time. There are repetitive processes such as production of drawings, such as placing features, repetitive features like I mentioned before, like holes, slots, tabs. There could also be some nesting involved, right? Because eventually the plywood has to either be cut on a laser machine or it has to be cut on a CNC router. So in all of these cases, these repetitive processes bring down the efficiency, CAD efficiency a lot. And in order to tackle this, we rely on automated processes that we achieve using macros. So at KEYWAY Solutions, we have a team in-house that not only understands the process that your company is going through, but we find different ways to cut down the time that it takes from the sign-off of the design from the client all the way to the stage where the road case is finally ready for manufacturing. So that is how we achieve the maximum amount of efficiency, and obviously that results in the net profits being high compared to processes that are not automated. Thank you. We can apply these same points to the example that we were discussing earlier, which was to make a road case for a moving head. And as you can see over here, that we have designed a road case to suit that purpose. As we discussed, these lights would be placed from the front, so it will be a front entry case. As you can see, the lights have the brackets and clamps already attached onto them. So there has been a provision provided in the lid, in the sense that the lid has been made a bit deeper so that when the lid closes, the foam in the lid comfortably rests on top of the clamp and prevents the light from moving up or down during transportation. Similarly, you can see that since this light weighs quite a lot of provision has been left at the bottom, so that even if there is a little bit of flex from this plywood structure, that this can still be taken care of, and the light will not touch the bottom. Also, the design has been made in such a way, as you can see, the arms are supported on the back using EVA foam, so the foam in the back has a cutout. Similarly, when the front door closes, the remaining arm, the second arm, can rest on this platform. As we discussed earlier, the front two casters have brakes on them, and since we do not want the front lid to be sagging under its own weight, we have also put a caster over here. The front two casters have brakes on them, as we mentioned earlier. Since these lights are quite heavy, if you're trying to take them out or trying to put them in, you do not want the road case to be moving about. So this is how we detail the case once the client approves or gives sign off on the MVP design. And now all the details that are required to manufacture the case have been included in this case, which can now proceed to the next stage of fabrication drawings, after which we will do some nesting, and after nesting we'll perform the CAM process on those parts, so that we can generate CNC codes that can be fed into the machine and these parts can be produced. And all these strategies we will discuss in the next slide, where we will discuss the manufacturing process of the road case. Thank you. The next step in the design of a road case is to produce manufacturing drawings. Now, what do manufacturing drawings consist of? They consist of detailed assembly drawings. So an assembly drawing would show you the order in which the parts are assembled. Obviously, this is very important for the case builders, because when you're designing the case, a design engineer also needs to take into account the order in which the case is going to be built. If that order is difficult to follow, then that is not an efficient design, because DFM and DFA are very important aspects that have to be taken into account by design engineers. And the more experience that designers have with manufacturing, the better results are produced when designing a case. Similarly, you would also provide a cut list. This cut list will be for the extrusions, such as the single angle extrusions or the edge extrusions that will be used on the case. You also have to provide some important dimensions that will allow the case builders to do a quality inspection check before the case is released. Now, of course, if you have the product on hand, you can also do a test fit. But if you have already scanned the product, or you have some sort of CAD available that you can make sure fits properly in the case, then that also is a very good way of doing a quality inspection check. Similarly, the most important aspect over here is the bill of materials. This bill of materials is not only used to be this is fed into the ERP system, so that the ERP system can do an inventory adjustment, and at the same time it allows the case builders to understand what parts are used and in what quantities are they going to be used. Similarly, the plywood that needs to be cut to manufacture this case, or in some cases there are also fiberglass is used to construct the case, or let's say aluminum is used to construct the case, you would need what we call nesting files. And so those nesting files will be done on to the stock sheets that are available, and once that nesting is done, we will provide also a cut list, so that once the parts are cut, the case builders know what is the label of each part, because if they do not know that, then it will not be easy to recognize the parts when building the case. Similarly, when we are talking about cutting the foams and the panels, we necessarily don't need dimensions over there, because that have already been decided in the design of the case, and so they just need to be CNC cut. To do nesting at KEYWAY Solutions, we use multiple softwares such as SolidWorks Nesting Works. We also use sometimes Cut Leader, and we have considerable experience in employing other softwares such as Sigma nest and Pro nest to do nesting. Once the nesting is done, we use our CAM softwares to perform CAM on the plywoods and also the foams. Now over here you can employ different strategies, and having these strategies already decided and pre-fed into the CAM allows you to recognize the features that are used consistently. And we at KEYWAY Solutions have resources in-house that are able to program such stuff in CAM softwares. So if, for example, if you take the example of SolidWorks CAM, we are able to develop two libraries, post processors. Also we are able to feed in feature recognition features that not only detect the repeated features that are used on the panels, but it also applies proper techniques that will be used during the machining of this plywood and the foams. Once the CAM strategy and the CAM processes have been applied, we will generate a CNC code or an NC code file that will be fed into the machine, and the proper parts will be produced. Now it is very important that the tool library and the feature recognition systems in CAM softwares need to be programmed very precisely, so that you don't have to ask the CAM software to recognize those common features again and again. If done the right way, this can significantly reduce your CAM time by more than 70%. So we at KEYWAY Solutions have the resources to do that as well. Thank you. While designing a road case is very important, there are also other aspects of designing a road case that we at KEYWAY Solutions also give a lot of thought to. And in these slides, we are going to look at what those aspects are, and I'm going to show you some real-world examples to explain our points in a much better way. So the first very important thing regarding designing a road case is to have a very strong database, and there are a couple of points that need to be taken into account that we at KEYWAY Solutions pay a lot of attention to. So the first thing would be having a very meaningful SKU or part number design scheme, because you could easily be dealing with some assemblies that could have parts numbering in hundreds of them, right? So if we come back again to our example of a front-loaded road case that is carrying a light, so you can see over here how we have not only categorized all these parts into their respective folders, but we have also named them such that amongst these hundred of parts, if you want to find something really quickly, you are able to do so by categorizing them in different folders according to the nature of the part. And also you'll find it very easy to find a specific instance of a specific type of part, right? So in this example, we have, if you're looking for panel, we'll go to the panels folder, and then we can look at the specific instance of that part. Similarly, if you're looking for extrusions, corners, braces, handles, latches, lid stays, all of these can be easily found from the feature design tree. Now, this is something, whether your design is small or whether it's multi-level assembly, the same concept applies everywhere. And the aim of explaining this is to make you understand that these things, whether they are small or whether they are large, they need to be taken into account, because your part number and your SKU scheme should always be future centric. So in the future, if you plan on expanding this further, then this type of categorization and organization will always result in a workflow that is very efficient. Moving onwards, library frequently used part management. So yes, again, as you can see in this road case, we have a lot of hardware. We have caster dishes, we have latches, we have handles, we have corners and braces. And so we have developed a library over here of frequently used parts, so you don't have to download these parts again and again and give them their material properties or other properties. So if you need something, for example, if you need a caster, you can just go in your library and find the one that you require and just drag it into the assembly like this. So all of this results in a much quicker design time, and the less amount of time you spend on the design, the more efficient your design is, and the profit for margins, which is the name of the game, is much better in this case as well. So this is something that we always think about, and this is something that we also develop for a lot of clients. The third would be design reusability, setup and management begin with a journey and end in mind. All right, so again, if we take the example of this road case, if we know that this road case is something that will be utilized again and again, so what we always do is we do not need to, if another client comes to us and they want, let's say, a road case that carries a similar light, but the light is smaller in size, so we do not need to start from scratch. We can, what we call in our design language as skeleton models, we can produce a skeleton model of this case, and since this case is made parametrically, we can quickly make changes according to the height, width, basically the overall dimensions of the new light. That means the time it takes to go from conceptual design to the manufacturing stage will be shortened quite a bit, because you're not going to be designing this case from scratch. Instead, you will be taking CAD from a starting point, which will be this case, and then modifying it quickly to suit the other light. Then storage and collaboration, PDM, PLM versus cloud storage. Okay, this is one very important question that a lot of clients ask us, whether they should go for cloud storage options such as Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, or should they consider like ERP, PDM, PLM management systems like Odoo or SolidWorks PDM, so on and so forth. If you are a company that is looking at, if you're a seasoned manufacturer and you have a lot of departments that tie in together, for example, manufacturing, inventory management systems, sales, all of these are tied together, then a more professional approach such as SolidWorks PDM would be appropriate. Why? Because in instances like this, you need a lot of control on file revisions, on file releases, and there are also a lot of designers who are working at the same time. So if there is ever a chance of or fear of overwriting files that are being worked on by multiple designers, then that can be prevented by having a professional system, part file management system like SolidWorks PDM. However, if you are very new to this business and you do not want to spend, you don't have that much budget to invest in a product management system, then you can easily go for Google Drive or Dropbox, because these are, one, very economical to start off with. The second is they offer a lot of storage for quite cheap. The third is they are very easy to set up, and the price per seat is much cheaper compared to setting up a proper PLM or PDM system. So if you're a new company, it would be best to start up with these cloud storage systems and then get an idea of what your company would need next, and then expand that slowly. Most of our clients, they do use Dropbox, OneDrive or Google Drive, and there are very few of them that are very, very large companies that have multiple designers across various departments. And at that stage, you need to really have control over your files, and you need to understand which file is being used in thousands of assemblies. And so you don't want to change that part, because that will result in, multiple of these sub-assemblies being affected. So that is where you need a lot of control and you need revisions. So that is where PDM systems are really helpful. The fifth point would be engineering revision and lifecycle management. Pay attention to design backward compatibility. Yes. So Whenever we are designing road cases, we always have to think about the clients who have already ordered these products from us, right? So let's say a client comes to us and they have ordered this case from us, and let's say in the future they are ordering the same part, but they want the casters to be moved slightly inwards or to different positions. Now, obviously, since it is a repeat customer and they are ordering a similar case like this, we always have to make sure that the new case that they have ordered from us with the changes to the casters, it is still compatible, or it's still able to stack on top of the previous case that they have ordered us. So this is where we really think about the implications of changing the design. And the best way to do this is to communicate with the client what their requirements are, because we try to sell systems to the client and just not one road case. So every change to a design has to be communicated to the client to make sure that any road cases being sold to them are compatible with whatever they have bought before. So these are some of the points that we at KEYWAY Solutions take a lot of care about to make sure that they are translated into a well-rounded quality product that is not only a one-time venture but can think of the design in future terms as well. Thank you. Collaboration and management is a very important part of any internal design process, and we can divide that into two categories. One could be internal, where you have discussions internally within the team. That could be your manufacturing department, your sales department, accounting department, so on and so forth. And then you have the external channels that you use to have communication with your customers. So internally, we have access to multiple communication channels such as Google Workspace, Teams, so on and so forth. Sometimes even Slack as well. And to make sure that all the chat is very much organized and only the relevant people know information about specific road cases or specific orders, we categorize the chat. We make groups. So let's say if you have a customer who is a repeat customer and they order a lot from you, so we can make a group chat and assign design engineers to that group so that they are always available to answer any questions related to that client, and all of that chat remains in one place rather than multiple people who have nothing to do with the case getting involved. So that is something we don't making groups such as that avoids that clutter. Similarly, every road case has to go through a proper pipeline, starting from designing the case conceptually, sending it to the customer for approval. The customer might require some changes to be done. Essentially, once the case is approved, then you have to put in manufacturing details, produce manufacturing drawings, do some nesting and CAM. So all of this pipeline for designing the case is very well managed through Monday.com. That is something we have a lot of experience with, especially the fact that Monday.com allows a lot of automations. So this makes sure that every department knows where the case is at a specific stage, and only the people who are supposed to be involved at that particular stage are aware of that. This is something that we have been doing for quite some time, and we would be happy to show you some examples if need be. Lastly, ERP, CRM, sales, accounting, all of this. So some of the clients that we have been working with for quite some time, we have had a very good working relationship with them, and that results in trust that allows us to take on further roles within the company. So for example, we could communicate directly with the customers. We can provide quotes for the road cases. We can send invoices, and we can also have a look at the ERP system and see that if a big order has come in, then whether we have enough inventory to process that order. And that is a good follow through with the external communication. These are obviously the channels that we will use to communicate with the customer. So emails, that is very common. Everyone uses it. But what we supplement it with is using sketches, doodles, or sometimes we also record videos that we send to the clients. Video is a very quick way of, and a quick and visual way of digesting information that might otherwise be lost in writing in an email. And so in other instances also, sometimes the customers, they come to the office, and once they come to the office, the design engineer in your company would record a video of the requirements the customer has, and then that video can be sent to us and we can design the case around that. That is something that we regularly encounter as well. And lastly, at some point during the working relationship, we have had clients who have given us access to VoIP calls, and so that allows us to directly pick up the phone and call the customer and confirm certain details that might otherwise take a day or two to get confirmed through emails. So having VoIP phone just squeezes the communication timeline quite a lot, and the result is that your lead time for producing the case all the way from the conceptual design to the manufacturing stage gets compressed a lot. So these are some of the ways that we at KEYWAY Solutions manage this collaboration. And in the next slide, we are going to see how what is our most default powerful setup that we use to go through this entire process of communication, designing the road case, and talking with the customer. Thank you. Okay, so here we are going to see how we would be a perfect fit for you, and whether you are a seasoned manufacturer or whether you are just starting up, we have solutions for all of these scenarios. So let's have a look at how we would do that. So for remote work, a very powerful default setup for us would obviously start with an organizational email, right, for external communication. And this is something that we always use the existing one that the client already has. So let's say if you have your email domain set up, we would become part of that. That would allow us to exchange emails with you internally. And if you're a seasoned manufacturer and you have had a lot of experience working with remote design engineers, then we can also use those email channel to communicate with the customers. Similarly, currently our default setup for communicating either internally or externally with the client is Microsoft Teams, but we are always welcoming of other channels such as Slack or maybe Google Workspace. Then the next would be telephonic conversations. Yeah, as I explained in the previous video, clients that we have been working with for quite some time, we have developed a good relationship with them, and that results in a lot of trust. And they have allowed us to, they have given access to VoIP calls, and that way we are able to pick up the phone, call the customers, and understand their requirements. Or if there's anything that we feel will take 1 or 2 days to get a reply from email, we can then just clarify it over a phone call that would take only 5 minutes. Right now, most of our development on road cases is done using SolidWorks CAD and CAM. So SolidWorks we normally use to design cases, we use SolidWorks Nesting Works to do nesting, and then finally we use SolidWorks CAM to produce CAM files for our workshop. And so understandably so, when you're working on these flight cases, the data has to be organized as well. And most of our clients, they use either OneDrive or they use Dropbox, and we have subscription for both. So essentially what happens is that they add us to their file storage system, and we are able to sync data that way. So no matter what flight case we are working with, at the end of the day, it will sync to your storage system automatically, and that way you will be able to see all the day-to-day progress being done on the flight cases. As explained in the video earlier, we use Monday.com heavily for our order management. So we have organized it in such a way that the design engineer, the manufacturing department, the assembly workshop, the accounting department, all of them know what stage of the pipeline the road case is in, right? Before the road case ever is assigned to a designer, it is in the accounting department, and so Monday.com reflects that. The designer only gets to know about it once the prepayment or one of the payment options has been confirmed by the accounting department. At that stage, the order comes through to the pipeline and the design engineers get notified that this is a new order has come in. The design engineers start working on that. They produce a preliminary design for the customer to confirm, and once the customer confirms that, the order would then move to the next design stage, which would be the detailing stage. So this is some of the ways that we track our orders on Monday.com. Now, keep in mind that these are only examples of what we are more proficient with, but given our experience in this industry, we are always welcome of new systems, whether they are CAD systems, whether they are CAM system, ERP system, whatever that may be. But our experience, extensive experience in this field, allows us to hit the ground running. So we would only need to become familiar with your internal processes and not with these softwares, because more or less all these softwares are the same. So I hope this explains how we use these channels internally to get the flight cases done. Thank you.